Welcome to the Shatterproof Entrepreneur, where we dive deep into the stories, strategies, and mindset shifts that make entrepreneurs unbreakable. Today, we're incredibly honored to host Angel Tuccy, a trailblazer in the world of media, an award-winning speaker and visionary who has transformed the landscape of podcasting and professional visibility. Angel, welcome to the show.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's fun to have people on the show that I actually know in real life and can ask all the details about your life because I know more about you. You've got a great story and want to get that out to everyone that listens to us here on the Shatterproof Entrepreneur. You've had a kind of a interesting journey into the entrepreneurial world. So let's kind of start at the beginning. I know that when I met you a couple years ago at a mastermind, you told me the story, but you were in radio before you were on podcasts. So kind of start at the beginning about where your career was and how you've moved into this world.
Yeah, I would love to. I did start out I started out as a broadcaster. Oh gosh, what was that? 2009, I think it was, 2008. But the way I got into broadcasting, Scott, was I was a podcaster and my podcast got discovered by my local radio station.
Wow.
And so they invited me and my co-host to come in and do a daily broadcast on terrestrial radio. We were on the AM dial, doing the mid-morning show right there in Denver, Colorado. And that launched into a 10-year career in broadcasting with really no broadcasting experience, no background in journalism, but just a really fun podcast that was discovered and ended up, by the time I left broadcasting, I was hosting 2 talk shows a day, 2-hour talk shows. So 4 hours of talk radio every day. Scott, how often do you do a broadcast? How often do you host a show?
Maybe twice a week.
Maybe twice a week and 30 minutes each, right?
Right.
And so we were doing, 4 hours of talk radio every day. So 20 hours a week of broadcasting until about 5 years ago when I left broadcasting.
Wow. And so you leave broadcasting and your life's kind of a blank slate. If I remember right, because you guys are kind of where we are in life, that you're empty nest. And so you can go anywhere, do anything. And so you're no longer in Denver, Colorado.
Right. It seems like, this blank slate, no longer tied to, I was in the studio every day, all day long. So 5 days a week, tied to a job. My kids had moved out. 2 of them moved from Denver to Orlando. My son was going away to college. My husband and I were empty nesters, and really the world was our oyster. But in that same time, as much as it could feel like very freeing and you have all this opportunity in front of you, it can be incredibly paralyzing and depressing because where do you go? I've got nothing, right? My career was over. My kids have left me. Right? Where do I go from here? Do I just, binge watch television and eat a tub of ice cream? Yeah. But fortunately for me, and this is one of those, we say where when God closes a door, he opens a window. So just 6 weeks before I left broadcasting, I had taken a 5-day professional course on speaking from stage. And even though I was in broadcasting, you would think, well, you're already a speaker, right? You speak every day. But I will tell you, sitting behind a microphone in a studio is nothing like standing in front of an audience and speaking from stage. But I had just taken that class just to improve because I actually had a terrible fear of public speaking. Nervous, stage fright, the whole thing. And so I was working through that. And as soon as they let me go from broadcasting, after about 3 days of pity party, I called up my speaking coach and said, all right, I'm hitching my wagon to this speaking thing. Do you think that there are audience out there? Do you think there are people that want to learn how to get booked in media, who want to do their own PR, or want to leverage media exposure? And he's like, you bet. And there's nobody, at least at the time, and this was 5 years ago, there was nobody teaching how to do PR and get booked in PR who'd actually been in PR. So a lot of it was, hey, I did this for myself. I'll show you how I did it for myself. But I was a unicorn in the space, Scott, in that I had come from broadcasting and was on the inside sharing my tips and insider secrets to the community. So that launched into a great 2-year span of traveling as a speaker.
Yeah, and if I remember right, it's a huge number of events. Was it 200? How many events did you do? It's like amazing.
It was 100. It was
100.
100, which equates to about 2 a week.
That's crazy.
And it was crazy. What was beautiful about that at the time was, Jay and I had been married for almost 20 years, or maybe we were over 20 years at that point. And so many of our couple friends who had been married that amount of time were getting divorced, right? They were splitting up.
Mhm.
The kids were gone and they just realized that they didn't have anything in common or keeping them together anymore. And honestly, Scott, the writing was on the wall for Jay and I to go down that same path. But what this ended up doing was really bringing us together because we started traveling together to all of these locations. And when you're traveling, you don't know where you're going, everything's unknown. It's really nice to have a buddy with you
Mhm.
and to help with just navigating everything. So we started traveling together and it just brought us together, made us closer, made us stronger. He was so supportive of me, even, as I'm trying to navigate this whole new business idea of speaking and selling from stages, navigating that whole thing. And he was just incredibly supportive of me throughout the entire process. But it really brought us together closer and stronger as a couple. So, there's always something good to be found of, during these struggles, right? It's the refiner's fire for sure. When
Yeah.
you feel like you're being tested and things aren't going well and it's so challenging and what do I think I'm doing? But then you look back and you're like, all right, because of that, because of how we had to really rely on each other, and the pride and the excitement of being in a new city and trying new things just really kept our relationship, like re-sparked our relationship
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. And so one of my favorite comedians, Michael Jr., says that your setback ends up being your setup. And so you get the exit from radio, wasn't your idea, and suddenly you have this whole new career of speaking on stages and teaching people like me how to leverage PR and media, not just do it for you, but teach people how to do it. And that's such a different thing. So to kind of hone in on that, what would be your number one tip for an entrepreneur that's listening right now that wants to get into media? What's the first thing they should do?
Well, number one, you should, right? If you're thinking about leveraging media exposure, absolutely the answer is yes. It doesn't matter how long your business has been around. It doesn't matter how many customers you have. It doesn't even matter what your revenue is. The power of leveraging what we call other people's audiences, right? Borrowing a trusted audience, an established audience is always going to be a fastest way to create exposure and visibility. The good news is every day there are thousands of media opportunities. There are journalists, there are hosts, there are podcast hosts, there are magazine editors. They are looking for stories, they're looking for content. And you would think that they would have plenty, but really the need for quality content and quality guests is incredibly high. There's always more demand. We never run out. In fact, over the last 2 years, we've really shifted from traditional media to really focusing on helping podcasters grow their shows and by helping our clients get booked on more podcasts. And I probably add about 15 new podcasts every week into our network, and we will never run out. We will never run out. So number one, you should start. Number two, just know that there's an unlimited number of opportunities. But the first thing you should do to answer your question is really get clear on who is your audience. Right? So think about what is the problem you solve and who is the audience that you solve it for, because that will help you really narrow in and focus on the right media opportunities for you,
Mm,
what TV shows, what radio shows, what podcasts, what magazines does it make sense for you to reach out to and begin to build that relationship. So if you can focus in on what's the problem I solve and who do I solve that for, then matching you up for those right media opportunities is going to be a really easy next step.
Hey there, it's Scott Reib, cutting in for a quick moment. If you're enjoying the podcast and finding value in our discussions, you're going to love the Access Plan. It's designed for entrepreneurs like you, offering unlimited legal advice without the worry of high hourly fees. With the Access Plan, you can get the legal support you need at a flat monthly rate so you can focus on growing your business with confidence. Head over to reiblaw.com/access to learn more and join Access now and get busy shatterproofing your business. Now let's get back to our amazing guest. That's great advice. I know that I had to do that a few years back when I started down the media road and getting on podcasts and stages. And one of the fears I had was that I'm not going to be good enough, right? That I won't be a good enough guest. I won't be entertaining enough. All of that stuff.
All the head stuff, right? That we tell ourselves.
Yeah. And, I had to remember what Zig Ziglar always said is that anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly at first. And so just do it. Just get out there, do your best that you can. But as you do it and as you exercise, whether it's on podcasts or on stages, you'll get better with every rep that you do. I guess I've done about 100 guest spots in the last 2 years. And it's so much easier now to pop on a podcast and tell my story than it was 2 years ago, and even really a year ago, right? Sure. And so just follow that advice and do it. The company that you do all your work from is Media Firestorm, is that right?
Yeah, so the company is Media Firestorm. Our brand that we're known for is because of our Facebook group called Need a Guest. And so for years, people would come to me and say, hey, I need a guest. Angel, who do you know, right? I need a guest for my show. I need a guest for this. And just because of my network of traveling and all the things that I had done, my relationship building, I just had an incredible network and I could play media matchmaker. And so during the pandemic, when I stopped traveling as a speaker, I started a Facebook group called Need a Guest, and it helps podcasters find guests and guests get booked on podcasts. And so Media Firestorm is really, it's the business, it's the product, the program that we helped our clients to get booked on. But the very first thing we have our clients do is go and get booked on their first 10 podcasts, because that helps them to get that wiggles out. Like you said, do it poorly, like get yourself out there and figure out what you're going to say. And what's another beautiful thing about podcast guesting, that is it's a conversation, right? It's a dialogue. It's weird to stand up here and say, hey, I was an award-winning TV show and broadcaster. I've spoken on, 100 stages, over 200 podcasts. Like, look at me, feels weird. But if you ask me to talk about it and talk about my story and talk about my journey, now it's a conversation. So you don't even have to be a good public speaker. You don't have to put a presentation together. You don't have to have a signature talk, so to speak. But you really want to have one core message that you are weaving through every single one of those podcast interviews. That's where you're going to become that go-to authority. Get really comfortable. It's going to be really fun. And it's going to be really, really easy for you to be what I call #media ready. Like if I called you today and said, Scott's got an opening, would you be ready? If you knew you had one core message that you were weaving through all of your media interviews because of the one problem you solve, the audience you're solving it for, then you were always ready to be booked on a podcast or any type of media interview.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge. So what sort of programs does Media Firestorm offer to help entrepreneurs?
One program. We get you booked on podcasts every single week, period. So we really focused in, for a while, I think as an entrepreneur and as a business, there's all these things we can do, right, to serve our clients. And so I started by teaching media opportunities, how to do your own media. Then we started doing PR. Then we started doing publishing. Then we started doing retreats. Then we started doing coaching, right? We start just kind of creating this menu of opportunities that we were doing and serving our clients. And I partnered up with a gentleman. His name is Jamie Atkinson. He came to me. He was networking in my Facebook group. And he asked me, what do I sell? And I gave him the menu of all the things that we did. He says, Angel, what do people come to you for? Like, what's the number one thing you solve? What's the problem you solve? They want to get booked, period. They just want to get booked. And in fact, at that time, more and more of my clients were asking to get booked on more podcasts than any other media platform. And so if we can just focus on one product, one core offer, we help you get booked every single week on top podcasts, and we can stay in our lane and we could dial that in, we probably do it better than anybody else out on the marketplace. One, because we have the network, right? We have the community, we have the network of podcast hosts. And two, because we do it every single week, right? And we probably book 100 podcast interviews every single week throughout our network. So
wow,
we just rock at it.
So if someone wanted to get started and become media ready with you guys, how would they do that?
Well, we're going to have a really great conversation here today. And I think that just really opens the door, Scott, for planting the seed of whether or not it makes sense to be a podcast guest, if guesting is a great way for you to market, create, use it for lead generation. We teach our clients how to leverage podcast interviews to book more sales calls. So it's a great lead gen system. But really where the power is leveraging our Facebook group, the Need a Guest Facebook group. So we've recorded, in fact, we just launched a 3-episode training that normally is what we use to teach to our high ticket clients who hire us, right, to coach them through the process. But we will walk you through exactly how to leverage our Facebook group and how to get booked in the next 24 hours. And it's a free resource. It's 3 20-minute audios. You can go to needaguest.com and get access to that and download it, listen to that. It'll walk you through exactly how to leverage the Facebook community that we've created and actually get booked, and even give you some insider secrets of things that we've seen and tried and tested ourselves, and tips that we use to personally move podcast interviews into booking more sales calls. And it's free.
That's great. We'll put that in the show notes so you guys can go find that. And yeah, full disclosure, I'm a part of that group, and we'll be looking for you guys to be on there to see if you can show up on the Shatterproof Entrepreneur. That would be really fun. Well, Angel, what's the future for you?
Oh, that's a great question. So someday, right? Someday it'll be me and my husband living on a condo in Fort Lauderdale or something, right? And right now, we are just having so much fun. My husband just started a YouTube channel, and it's starting to take off. We moved to Orlando a few years ago to be closer to our kids. All 3 of our kids work at Disney World, and so we get to go and spend time with them and go to the park. So we're really in a fun place, and teaching entrepreneurs and business owners really how to leverage their time, work smarter, not harder. And to have a business that you can generate leads from wherever you are by podcast guesting is really kind of giving me my life back a little bit. And so we're just enjoying a little bit more free time, seeing more free time coming down the pike super soon. But big picture, I want to have 1 million people in our network and we're just the go-to name for podcasts and guesting, and for bringing people together. And I mean, we have a network. The group has grown to 30,000. We have a second group that's got another 30,000. But I mean, gosh, we've just barely tipped the tip of the iceberg, I think, with these numbers. We're brand new in the space as far as really honing in on podcast guesting, even with 10 and 12 years, broadcast background behind me. The pivots that we've made, I mean, we're really less than a year in really focusing in on this. So, and it's grown tremendously in this short period of time. I don't see it stopping.
Wow. Yeah, you've and just because I know you and we've talked, I know what's going on. and you mentioned partnering with Jamie. I think there's some real lessons there that everyone can learn, is that you found someone kind of organically that happened to have a skill set that was complementary to yours.
Yeah, very
You have
much.
you had the network, but
Yeah.
Jamie has some skills.
Yeah, my superpower, right, is bringing people together, building relationships, building connections. So the people side of it, but technology, systems, processes like that, not my strength. That is absolutely Jamie's strength. And like I said, he was networking in the group, found it, and he was actually one of four that had approached me to possibly purchase the Facebook group. But he was the only one, Scott, that took the time to listen to me, what was important to me. And the most important thing to me were the people in the group, and I wanted them taken care of. And how can we make this a win-win? And so rather than him buying the group, he came alongside to help me to put some systems and processes and technology and sales elements behind it that I had really been missing for myself. And you're right, the collaboration, the dual skill sets. I mean, it's not been a walk in the park. He and I have a business coach who I think kind of acts sometimes as our therapist,
Yeah.
right? Helping us to navigate this, because we do have very different skill sets. We do look at things through very different lenses. His is very numbers and systems and processes, and mine is people and emotions
People.
and conversations. And but so far it's working, and I can see, like, he and I both see the benefit of coming together, that we're both going to be way further along than we could have been on our own. We both really successful separately, but together even better, even stronger.
Yeah, what is it? If you want to go far, go by yourself. If you want to go fast, go with others. And
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
you're
it's fast. I think it's, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with
okay.
others. Right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are proving that. It's because I get to see behind the curtain, and it's been amazing to watch the early stages of this. And then I've seen just I've seen his work, because I get to see the email campaigns and things that you guys are doing, and it's all just so excellent. And so if you can become part of what they're doing and leverage their abilities, and don't let Angel fool you, she is an excellent speaker. She doesn't do it a whole lot anymore, but I've seen her twice, and she is so good. One of the things that you taught the last time I saw you was that everyone should be doing at least one podcast guesting spot a week.
Yeah, be consistent for sure. I think it's one of those things where when I meet people, they're like, yeah, I do it once in a while, or I've been on a handful. But the magic is that consistency. If you can get booked every single week on a podcast, even if you just did one, that's 50 audiences, but you're in that rhythm every single week. Book a podcast, get booked, and do an interview on a show. I personally still follow the rule. I'm on 2 podcasts every single week. And you can do it from anywhere, right? Anywhere you've got an internet connection. You don't always have to be in your office. You do need to be someplace quiet, but you can travel and still be a guest on podcasts. But that's what's going to give you the struggle with most entrepreneurs is they don't have enough leads. They don't have enough leads because they're not talking to enough of the target audience every week. Imagine if every single week you had a fresh new audience of really honed in targeted leads that are interested in your message. Not even social media can deliver this. Even if you're speaking on a stage at an event, you don't know who's in the audience. With a podcast, as a podcast guest, that audience is targeted in. They've got the psychographics, the demographics, the geographics, like they are exactly who you are looking for and who you want to speak to. So everything else that you're doing, keep doing it, right? If it's working for you, do that. But add a podcast every single week, at least one. Get yourself into that cadence. But even maxing out, the most I ever want you to do is two podcasts a week. That's all you need to create an unlimited, lead source for sure.
Yeah, and the real magic of the podcast, and when you get 100 out there for sure, is that they're there forever.
Yeah.
And so I get people that will book calls with me from podcasts I did 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It's it's crazy that people go back and listen. They find a show they like and they start going back and listening to older episodes. And then suddenly you're getting booked from things that you did, from seeds you planted years ago. So it's really worth it. Learn how to do it, master it, and learn how to tell your story so that you can get people to call you, because Angel's exactly right. Everyone's problem is they don't have enough leads. I talk to entrepreneurs every day as part of our access program, and almost everyone has that problem, is they don't have enough leads. I can't, it's very seldom that someone's asking me, how do I hire more salespeople because I have more leads than I can handle.
Yeah.
It's happened, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah, it's not the common. It's not the common. Well, Scott, I have to say thank you to you and give you kudos, because, full transparency, I am a client of Scott's, and the Shatterproof Your Business. I mean, the things that that I need to be doing to protect myself and to protect our company, especially as we grow, bringing on a sales partner. We're doing a retreat. You're like, do you have, what do we call those? Releases, right?
Releases.
So all of the things, right? To the holding company, protecting our family. I feel so comforted. Like, I can stay in my lane and do what I do, knowing I've got a team like you behind us so that we can focus on what we do best. And you're just protecting us on the back end. So I just wanted to give a kudos and a shout out to you to say thank you for protecting our company and our business and helping us to really serve our clients better, because there's less things we have to worry about on the back end.
Thank you. You said that just like I asked you to. That was really great. And it's really fun working with you. When I get to talk with Angel, Jay's with her most of the time. It's so fun working with families, and that's what we do here at Reib Law, is work with entrepreneurial families and help them smooth out the journey, and then hopefully give them some peace of mind and security that everything they're doing isn't going to get blown down by a strong wind. So thanks for doing that, man. It's been a blast having you on the show. Where besides you gave a link, is there somewhere on social media that people could connect with you?
For sure. So if you go to needaguest.com, it is going to give you access to the Facebook group. There's a link right there. It's going to give you access to download these 3 episodes that we've recorded. That'll walk you through how to leverage. Go and get yourself booked right away. Putting out evergreen content that will stand the test of time. And then if you do have your own show and want us to promote your show and help bring you quality guests, we do that for free. And there's a link to sign up for our directory there. And Scott, if your show's not on our directory, we want to make sure that we've got you listed.
Okay, great. Well, this has been just as fun as I thought it would be, and you've given some great value. I hope everyone's taking notes. And if not, we'll go to the show notes when this releases. In closing, I want to offer you a blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Until you and I meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thanks for joining us in the Shatterproof Room. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like the show, please subscribe, leave us a good review. And until we see you next week, stay Shatterproof. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as professional advice. While I'm your host, Scott Reib, and a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer, and this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship. The views expressed by my guests are their own and not mine, and they may not even reflect the opinion of the Shatterproof Entrepreneur Podcast. So we strive to provide valuable and accurate content, but we make no representations as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of any information to your particular situation, and won't be liable for any errors or omissions for the application of them. Always consult a professional or in the respective area that we've discussed before making any personal or business decisions.